Don Frericks is with us here today. How are you doing?
Great, Toby. Great. I'm so glad to be on your show.
Now, can you just describe to us what it is that you do?
Sure. My purpose in life is to change the world one leader at a time.
Mm.
And so, what I try to do is to work with leaders to help them become extraordinary. Have you ever worked for a bad boss?
No, actually.
Oh, you're very lucky.
Yeah.
Many people that I've met, including myself, have had really bad experiences working for someone that did not treat them with trust and respect. And after having gone through that many times in my corporate career, I realized that I was either going to be part of the problem or part of the solution. And so I've dedicated my life to helping leaders that really want to be outstanding leaders learn how to do that.
Yeah. So, what do you think makes a good leader?
Well, it's a great question. And it's such an ominous question to many people because the topic of leadership is so big. It seems like it's this monster of an ocean. There's so many different authors and things to think about with leadership. However, I found a company in the US by the name of Zenger Folkman, and they did a couple years worth of research on this topic to determine what is the difference between really poor leaders, good leaders, and then extraordinary leaders. And they came up with what they call differentiating competencies, or just the things that we can measure that are behaviors that people do that elevate themselves to a very extraordinary level. So it's those differentiating competencies that make the difference. For instance, let me give you one. One that's very popular is called inspires and motivates others to high performance. And today, and especially with the pandemic, so many people are looking for more inspiration and motivation, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely. And sometimes with a leader, you can maybe listen to your staff a bit too much and be too nice in a way that maybe makes it hard to actually get things done sometimes, do you think?
It's an interesting question. Some people say, Don, are you suggesting that all leaders should be nice?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I never saw nice used in any of the research words that were out there. However, nice actually does work for some personalities. I think
Yeah.
what people want, Toby, is they really want to be trusted and respected as a human being for their uniqueness, for their skills that they have. And they don't want to be made fun of or ridiculed or
Mm.
not listened to or not empowered. And that's what I mean. When you work for a bad boss, you realize how much you really want to be treated in that positive way.
Yeah, absolutely. So, how did you first get interested in leadership itself then?
Yeah, it's a good question. Many years ago when I was young in my career, I noticed that the people at the tops of big organizations who had the most leadership responsibility sometimes were really good with it and sometimes not.
Yeah.
And I was struck by how can you get to the top of a big corporation and not be a good leader? It just didn't make any sense to me. But as you probably are well aware, there are many people that can climb the corporate ladder without actually honing in on their leadership skills. And maybe they're very good with managing their boss or being political in the organization, or maybe they're super smart and have an expertise, but they don't really like people. And those people just aren't prepared to lead organizations. But I was always fascinated by watching that phenomenon where some of those people got into very big jobs, but really shouldn't have been there.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're offering some coaching as well for people to be better leaders, right?
Yes, my experience has been because I've actually run training and development organizations and corporations, is that a lot of times we ask people before the pandemic to go to workshops and they would sit in a classroom for a half a day or a full day or multiple days. But you'd ask them 2 weeks later, what did they retain or what did they remember about that class? And it was only about 20% of what was taught.
Yeah.
It was a pretty low return. So I started looking for what are better ways to help people change their behavior. And I believe coaching helps people develop better habits and change their behavior much better than leadership training.
Yeah. And what do you offer in that coaching?
Well, I think it starts always with really good self-assessment. And the best way to do a self-assessment, Toby, is to do it in a 360 environment, which means
Yeah.
you ask your boss for feedback, you ask your direct reports, and you ask your peers all at the same time in an anonymous way to give you feedback about what they see you do well and what you could do better. And once you have really good feedback like that, then you can determine how should I go about developing my skills.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you're not teaching people better leadership, what do you like to get up to in your spare time?
I love the crazy game of golf. Do you
Oh,
golf at all?
no, not really.
It's a crazy game. You
Yeah.
take this little white ball and you hit it 400 yards from a tee box into a little tiny hole, and you're supposed to do that in 4 strokes. And it's the craziest thing to think that you you can cover that much ground. And the reason I like it is that the game of golf is much like the game of life to me.
Yes.
That there's a lot of frustration, there's a lot of upset, there's a lot of curveballs, and so it really makes me think about how do I mentally and emotionally get through my own life, and golf is just a way for me to practice that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, where are we able to find your services everywhere and keep up to date with you?
Sure, you can certainly go to my website, donfrericks.com. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm frequently posting, giving updates for people. And you can find my latest book called Best Boss Ever on Amazon. It's also there as well. And I wrote the book and actually published it at the beginning of the pandemic so that people could have an idea of how to develop themselves
Yeah.
if they wanted to do that. I wanted to give it away. I didn't write the book to be a bestseller. Some people try to be best-selling authors. I didn't. I just wanted to say, okay, how can I give people my ideas and my process in the shortest possible way? So it's a little 65-page book, which is easy to read, but it outlines how could you go about developing yourself to be an extraordinary leader, best boss ever.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you very much for coming on the show today.
Thank you, Toby. It's good to be with you.